Right now, there's a road through the heart of Australia where a single afternoon of rain can strand you for days.
There is no phone signal, no help coming, and the road conditions can be brutal enough to shake a vehicle apart.
The supply trucks that keep entire towns alive crawl over gravel rough enough to shake a vehicle to pieces.
For decades, the fix has been obvious. Pave it. Turn this broken chain of dirt into one continuous, sealed road. It would be a straight path across the entire continent, a shortcut that is surprisingly affordable to build.
Out here, sealing a kilometer of road costs around $350,000, compared to $5 million in a city.
A cheap fix for an obvious problem, but it has taken nearly 30 years, and it is still not finished.
The road has been called Australia's longest shortcut, a single sealed highway stretching 2,700 kilometres long. It cuts through the heart of the continent, passing through the outback hub of Alice Springs and the iconic Uluru-Kata National Park. The name fits, as it carves a much more direct line between the country's east and west than the coastal highways.
For most of the last 70 years, it has been little more than a dirt track, but now it is finally being sealed for good.
All told, it is a roughly $1.2 billion project, funded by the federal government and the 3 states it runs through.
The aim is to have most of it sealed by 2032, connecting these regions better than ever before.
The road trains that haul freight and cattle out here run up to 53 meters long, among the longest trucks on Earth. The road has to be built wide and tough enough to take them, especially given the extreme desert heat. The surface bakes past 50 degrees Celsius, hot enough to soften ordinary road material, and when the rains come, they arrive all at once. But the hardest part was never the desert, it was getting anyone to agree to build it at all. He stood up at a national conference and made a case nobody had successfully made before, connecting remote communities. It was built to turn scattered lobbying into something governments would take seriously, and the answer to why it took so long is priority.
Only a few thousand people live along this entire route, not enough votes to win the political fights over road money.
So the federal government didn't commit serious funding until 2013, starting with just $42 million. And then they paid for the road the only way it ever got paid for, a stretch at a time, while the dirt in between washed out. What kept the campaign going wasn't the engineering, it was the communities along the route, with no other option when the road washed out. Families who couldn't get fresh food for weeks. Medical transport that simply couldn't get through when it mattered. The single biggest commitment came in 2022, a $678 million package to seal the worst of what was left.
Once the money was finally real, engineers hit the problems the desert had been hiding all along. Start with the trucks. A road train that long needs a road wide enough to handle the swing of multiple trailers.
Then there's the heat. That same 50-degree surface temperature means the ground expands and contracts dramatically between days and nights. Rigid concrete cracks under that kind of repeated stress, so engineers use flexible bitumen instead, designed to bend slightly with the ground. Underneath that surface, the sand itself is the problem. Loose desert sand has almost no structural strength. Step on it, and it shifts.
Crews mix it with cement or lime, then layer a plastic mesh called geogrid to spread the weight of a loaded road train.
And then there's the one thing this desert almost never gets, and absolutely cannot handle when it does. Out here, dry creek beds can sit empty for years, and then fill with a wall of water in a single afternoon with almost no warning. You can't bridge every one of the hundreds of crossings along this route. There are far too many across far too much distance. So instead, engineers build concrete causeways, low crossings designed to let floodwater flow straight over the top of the road rather than tear it apart. The road survives being submerged, it just can't be driven until the water drops, sometimes a day, sometimes longer.
Progress looks different in each of the 3 states the road crosses. In Western Australia, crews are working toward the Northern Territory border. In the Northern Territory, key sections are being upgraded to a proper sealed standard for road train traffic. And in Queensland, only a short stretch of dirt now remains. All told, well over half the route is now sealed. There's one detail almost nobody expects. Building a road through a desert sometimes means drilling deep bores just to find the water. Water is needed to mix and bind the surface in a landscape where water is the rarest resource of all.
But not everyone agrees this road should be finished, and the reasons go deeper than money. Remote communities deep along the route currently depend on supply trucks that can't get through every time it rains. Fresh food becomes frozen food, and sometimes no food at all. Medical transport becomes a gamble against the weather. A sealed road doesn't just shorten a drive. It means children get to school reliably. Medicine arrives on schedule. Improving access to health and services for remote and indigenous communities is one of the explicit reasons governments give for funding it. This is what more than 25 years of lobbying was actually fighting for. And it isn't only about the people who live out here. The economics are just as lopsided. Remember, this is a road that costs a fraction of a city highway to build, kilometer for kilometer. Against that, the payoff is large. The industries the route already serves, freight, mining, cattle, tourism, are valued at billions. And a sealed road is expected to unlock more, opening the gold country around Laverton and the rare earth precincts north of Alice Springs. Sealing it is estimated to support more than 2,000 jobs and to cut a brutal trip down to size.
Roughly 10 hours saved between Western Australia and Western Queensland. A full day of driving for a freight truck.
And there's a national angle. It gives Australia a third east-west corridor, a backup for when floods cut the coastal road.
As they regularly do. For once, the math is simple. It's one of the cheapest big roads the country will ever build.
And one of the most useful, which raises the question that follows every project built far from the cities that pay for it. Is this road being built to a real standard, or just to a price? It's a fair thing to ask about any project this remote. Oversight is harder when inspectors have to drive days to reach a work site. Supply chains are longer, and there are fewer eyes. The honest answer is that this kind of scrutiny is exactly what should be happening.
And the same governments that approved the money are the ones now accountable for proving the finished road matches what was promised.
There's also a quieter complication. Sealing the road will bring far more tourists to communities that have never had to handle that traffic.
Some sections cross land that's heritage protected or sacred to Aboriginal communities, which has meant careful consultation and, at times, rerouting.
It's not a reason not to build it. It's part of why it takes longer than anyone outside the project expects.
After more than 25 years lobbying, 3 governments, and roughly $1.2 billion, the finish line is finally within reach.
When the last stretch of dirt is sealed, Australia will have something it has never had. A single, continuous, paved road running straight through the center of the continent. Connecting communities that, for decades, the rest of the country could only reach when the weather allowed.
The marvel here was never going to be the speed. It's that after everything, the floods, the heat, the decades of being told no, they're actually finishing it. So here's the question. Was more than 25 years of fighting worth it for a road most Australians will never personally drive?
Drop your answer in the comments, and subscribe to Mega Builds for more stories like this one.